Somebody tell me. Why is that a threat to early recovery?
Which one?
Right here. Classical conditioning. I mean, I would hope, withdrawal syndrome.
Triggers.
Pretty good. Withdrawal syndrome, yeah, that's right. This one in a second. Why classical conditioning? Why would that be? What is that all about? Somebody say, what'd you say?
Triggers.
The triggers and things like that. And once again, gang. If only one person would have told that guy one day, guess what? This is going to happen. That kind of a thing like that. Understanding that. Understanding those triggers. And gang, you're never going to get them all. By the time we're teenagers, young adults, we are a walking encyclopedia of one use cue association, response association. What is that called? Conditioned stimulus after another kind of a thing. And so, we're never going to get them all, but look for, you've got to assess it in the very beginning. You have to assess what are going to be the biggies, at least for this person. Do you understand what I'm saying? And don't think that person's going to walk around with a placard. Here are my big use cue associations. No, you're going to have to find them, and they can be sneaky. They can be insidious, little sneaky things. Again, that thing right there for somebody, that bubblegum thing. Oh my God, that's it. You see what I'm saying? You never know what are going to be the biggies even for that person. You've got to, because you've got to do something about that. Help that person understand this. That person, they don't know this. All they know is they're craving. They're starting to Jones. They're starting to this. They're starting to, you see what I'm saying? They don't understand this. And if somebody hasn't helped them, you guys need to understand this stuff well enough that you can use it for your assessment and know who this client is. You need to know it even more well enough that you can make sure your client understands this stuff. This makes or breaks for so many people from the very start. I mean, how many times somebody, again, I'm going to do it. They're determined. This time's going to be the time. I'm going to this. I'm going to that. And then, within 48 hours, just the smallest, you never know. And some, well, as you call them, trigger. Conditioned stimulus. Conditioned stimulus. And out the door they're going. Back out they're going. And it's not because they were full of shit, they were just blowing smoke and they really don't want to get better. It's not because, no, it's because they were overwhelmed with one of these conditioned stimuli. Do you understand what I'm saying with this stuff? And it's so very important with that. Somebody tell me, post-acute withdrawal, what were some of the dynamics we were talking about with that? What were some of the dynamics with that? What was that? Somebody talk to me about post-acute withdrawal. Why is that a risk to early recovery?
It could happen shortly after, up to 2 years.
And what is it? What are you talking about? What happens?
Like withdrawals.
Well, not really withdrawals.
It's like confusion and
just
can't concentrate.
And one good way to explain this, see guys, your client, you need to address this and help this client understand this from the very beginning. And make sure they understand what this is going to be about because, it's probably going to happen in some way, at some level, with that person. If they've had any real involvement in this, you know what I'm saying? Tolerance, dependence, any of those kinds of physiological things going on. And you know what? And what I usually say is, I just, I want to talk to you about something right now that, in case it's something you start to experience, I want you to know what this is all about. And the way I explain it to them is kind of like, you know what? Your brain and your body are going to be really mad at you for a while. First, you made that brain and body go through all the changes it had to go through to get used to those drugs or alcohol. Do all the things it had to do to protect you from those. The reason why you're alive today is because your body successfully protected itself from those acute dangers of that. But as your body changed in a way to protect you from that, it changed. That's why withdrawal. All withdrawals, what is withdrawal? It's just that your body physiologically changes enough so that it's protecting you, so that you're not killing yourself with this drug. And we're going to see that next semester, the physiological stuff. But then, when that body changes to protect you, it changes in a way that at some point now it needs that drug in order to continue to operate at its new level. Does that make sense?
Can I just ask a question? Because, you're making me think of something that happened with me, when I first got clean. like, I had avoided the ER because that was like where I was going. And I had to go to the hospital one night for something, and it was like, as soon as I got to the hospital, like, I immediately started thinking about getting high.
Yeah.
Because it's like my brain, like, seen that area.
Well, yes, that would be the classical conditioning stuff.
Okay.
Yes, all those kinds of use cues and things like that. With this post-acute withdrawal, though, and it's too bad it's called withdrawal. It should have been called post-acute, your brain's pissed off at you syndrome. You see what I'm saying? That kind of a thing. And help that client understand that. The thing is, though, that when it changed as a way to protect you, it got to the point that now it needed that chemical, whatever that substance is, in order to feel normal. Now you've stopped using that substance. And now that brain and body is going to have to go through a whole bunch of new adjustments again. And that's not going to happen overnight. That doesn't happen. It's not just because you go to a meeting or make a call to White Oaks or something like that everything's all better. It's going to take some time. It can take quite a lot of time. Another thing you got to remember, the use lifestyle, the addiction lifestyle, the stress, the malnutrition, the injuries, that ongoing that changes the cutting agents that you don't even know you were taking. The thises, the thoses, and all those other things. All those things are a part of that physiological system now. And hey, it's fantastic. You're going to meetings, you went to White Oaks, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're about to determine. That doesn't mean that your brain says this is okay, everything's fine. No, it's going to take some time. That client needs to understand that. Because they're going to start to. Not so much withdrawal, but yeah, the confusion, the agitation, the labile affect, the sleeplessness, the dreams, the irritation, the this, the that, all these things. At some point, for some clients, this comes on hard and early enough, they're going to sit there and think, well, this is recovery. This is what I get for stopping using. Hell, I was better off when I was loaded. I was better off when I was using. This isn't worth it. This is terrible. I feel like hell. And you got to make sure that client understands that. And the other thing is, guys, that if you don't explain this to that client, well, that client will figure something out. And well, you know what? I'll tell you I'll tell you what's going on. I'll tell you why I'm feeling so bad. Everybody else is going to be okay, but I did one too many, and so this is just the way. I'm never going to be okay. And what's going to be the next logical step? If I'm going to hell, I might as well go in style. Yeah. Fuck this. You see what I'm saying? Hey, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you why I'm feeling so bad. I pissed the big guy off one too many times, and this is just my punishment. And this, again, if I'm going to hell, I might as well go in style. Do you see what I'm saying with this stuff, you guys? That client will figure out why they're feeling so bad. And if they figure it out the wrong way, it can be very dangerous for their recovery. You need to make sure and that they understand what this stuff is. And again, a lot of those physiological changes, we're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about them, the brain, neurophysiology, pharmacology, next semester. But this is so important. Do you hear what I'm saying? This is stuff you need to walk out of this every time. This room, you need to walk out with this information. This is the stuff that's going to make or break how well you help that client. And again, early recovery is not just the first few days or the first few weeks, is it? This stuff can last for a while. This stuff can last for a while. The fear, the floating things. Gang, I know. Think about this, man. The floaty things. Did you ever think you were going to go to college one day and some professor is going to be in a classroom talking to you about floaty things? What the hell is that? I never read that in any science book. Floaty things. What are the floaty things?
My brain goes to it every time I see that.
What was that? What was that metaphor I used? Imagine for a minute. Imagine for a minute that you're in Lake Michigan and one of those very, very stormy days in Lake Michigan. The Great Lakes, they can get almost like the ocean sometimes. And you fall out of your boat and your boat sinks. The only thing you got is the floaty cushion, your floaty thing. And it's keeping you so that you're not going under. And here I come along in my boat. And I say, I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you. All you need to do is throw away your floaty thing. And then I'll be here for you. And you're sitting there, throw away my floaty thing? What the fuck do you mean throw away my floaty thing? I'll die! If you're not willing to throw away your floaty thing, that means you don't want to get better. Don't you see that? What are the floaty things for this person?
Does that mean like Suboxone?
Well, no, the floating things, number one, there are levels of the floaty things. The number one level of the floaty things. This is what's keeping me alive. Number one is the drug, whatever the drug or alcohol may be. The drug, the alcohol. That's a floaty thing. That person's terrified. That person's terrified of letting that go. It's not because they're an asshole, don't give a damn, because they don't care about anybody else. This is their way right now. I mean, gang, there are people out there right now, 8 o'clock in the morning. They don't know how to get out of bed and go to the bathroom without their drug, let alone get dressed, negotiate a day, do stuff. Just, you see what I'm saying? They can't imagine just getting out of bed, going to the toilet, and putting their clothes on without their drug. That's too much. They need that drug for everything at this point. You see what this isn't a party anymore. This isn't party, hey man, we're partying. No. This is how this person survives every day. And they believe they can't without that. You see what I'm saying? And we come along. And we say, you've got to throw away that floaty thing. I'm not saying that's wrong, of course. What are we going to do? We're going to have somebody, we're going to fill White Oaks up with a bunch of people bringing in their bags of drugs and booze and everything? No, of course not. But you've got to realize something. That's a terrifying thing for that person. That's a terrifying thing. That person can't imagine getting dressed this morning without their drug, and you're telling them. And then, gang, here's another thing. You know what? Not only do we say they've got to throw away their floating thing, from the very start, and this is a mistake. Remember when I said right thing, wrong time, right thing, wrong way, right thing, wrong motivational? Mm-hmm. Not only do you have to throw away your drugs, your floating thing, but you will never, ever, 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 ever be able to use that again. You understand what I'm saying to you? You ever use it again, you fucked it all up. You see what I'm saying? No, you will never, 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 never. Dang, that person, they're not sure how they're going to take their next breath without it, and you're telling them never, never, never at that point in this. You see what I'm saying? Do you realize that person can't imagine? Once again, I'm going to say it again. They can't imagine getting dressed this morning without their drug, and you're telling them never, 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 never again. Do you see how terrifying that is to that person? Do you see how scary that is with that person? That kind of a thing like that? And gang, this part, yeah, they don't want this anymore. Let's be honest with something here. This relationship with that drug, and we're not denigrating somebody, putting somebody down, making fun of it. Let's be completely honest. I wonder if you're in recovery, you think about this yourself. At some point, if somebody would have said, what do you really want out of this? How many people, I mean, if they're really honest with, what I really want is to figure out how to continue taking all my drugs without having all the fucking problems. That's what I'd like. Can you give me that? I don't want to let go of this. I'm terrified of letting go of this. You've got to understand that. The idiot counselor, they start to what? Charge in and denigrate them. What do you mean you want to let go of this? What the fuck? You see what I'm saying with this, you guys? As a matter of fact, and we'll be talking about this down the road. At some point, right thing, right time, right thing, right way, right thing, right motivational. I mean, right here at this point, you're sicker than fuck. All you want to do right now is feel better right now, and I'm telling you, you can never ever use again. Is that a good motivational match there? No. What I need to do is make you feel as if I'm going to help you feel good right now. That's all that matters. You hear what I'm saying with that? And then instead, I say, hey, and you can never use it again, and stuff like that. You know, gang, at some point, I have my clients, I do grief counseling with my clients. I let my client grieve the loss of their drug. And I know that almost feels completely antithesis nuts. Are you kidding me? Why would grieve the loss of their drug? They should be glad that's gone. What the hell do you mean grieve it? That's how idiot counselors think. Gang, this is a part of this person's life now. And at some point, and if they don't grieve that, and what I often say in this, undone business undone stuff, undone business comes back to haunt. Comes back as a poltergeist to haunt recovery. Does that make sense? Undone business comes back as a poltergeist to haunt recovery. This person, yeah, my client, they get grieve the loss of that drug. And I know. There may be people in this room that think, I thought Kels was pretty cool, now I think he's an idiot. What do you mean grieve the loss? They should be glad that drug is out of their life. They should be glad about that. What do you mean grieve it? Gang. That's a major loss in that person's life right now. Do you see what I'm saying? That is a terrifying thing. That drug, the number one floaty thing, losing that person that they don't know how to get out of bed, go to the bathroom and get dressed without their drug. And you're talking to them about the rest of your life you will never use again and all that other stuff. And you better damn well be happy about it too. What's the matter? How come you're not happy about this? Maybe you're full of shit.
Well, that drug kind of becomes your best friend. It was like the only thing that was there for you when you were feeling shitty.
No, your best friend, your lover, you're this, you're that.
Yeah.
It's your essence.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Yes. That person, they need to be allowed to grieve that loss. If they don't grieve that loss in their life, come to terms with that. Put closure on that. That's going to be undone business. And undone business comes back to haunt recovery. Does that make sense? Now, of course, this all is doing it well. You know, you don't want to at some point have a 5-hour cry session over, I miss my heroin. No, it's how do you do it right and well. Let that client they'll come to terms with and put closure on that relationship in their life. You hear that? It's a major loss in their life. It's a major loss. And you know, they can hide it. Say, I'm so glad I never... Bullshit. No. You need to put closure on that. The fear of the floaty things first. That. Hey, clients who... And they end up because they're not dealing with this stuff. They're not being allowed to talk. Another thing, gang, let clients feel it's okay and safe. I miss my fucking booze. What do you mean you miss your booze? What kind of a fucking bullshit thing is that to say? Well, we just learned something here. Keep our mouth shut. That's what I just learned. Mm-hmm. I just learned the best thing to do is shut up. Let clients know it's going to be okay and safe to talk about this. They're going to miss their booze, their drug. They're going to miss it and all that. You see what I'm saying? Let it be from the start. It's okay and safe. We're going to talk about this. You see what I'm saying with this? Undone business comes back to haunt. Hold on. That kind of a thing. Gang, this person, they need to be able to talk about this. They are terrified of this. They do miss it. And from the very split second, the last use and never again use, whatever use, they are classical conditioning is happening. You see what I'm saying with that? One way or another. Yes, what did you...
Yeah, I used to, get up, I couldn't even get up out of the bed, man, and move without having a shot of vodka, a bottle of vodka, and then I couldn't function.
Well, basically, you could have functioned, but you convinced yourself you couldn't.
Function.
You see what I'm saying?
And then when I stopped, then I could see what you're saying, I did miss it. I missed the mess out of it, and I felt bad,
Yeah. And
I couldn't get it.
And you know what, gang? And again, that client, they don't dare talk about that because if they dare say something like that, their counselor's going to charge into them and beat the hell out of them. Oh, what the fuck do you mean you missed that? You should be glad. Yeah, I know. Ideally, yes, at some point, celebrate the changes and the good stuff in their life. Yes, of course. Right thing, right time, right thing, right... You see what I'm saying? That kind of stuff like that. Right now, this is scary as hell. It's a terrifying thing for this person. You have to recognize that, realize that, and understand that as counselors. Let it be. It's okay and safe. Now, there's a difference. Again, gang, there's always, with these things, there's that fine wire. There's a difference between making it safe to talk about your uncertainties, your fears, your missing, that versus celebrating how much fun it was. It was how fucking, you see what I'm saying? Or what they call romancing the high. You gotta be careful. There's a very fine line there. This is why you're going to be called a counselor, because you're going to understand this stuff. Do you see what I'm saying with this? you're going to understand this stuff. Yeah, if you're not careful. Okay, well, go ahead and talk about that. And just sit back. No, and the client can talk, they can start to celebrate that so much, and then I just want to do that again right now. No, that you're a counselor because you're going to understand the fine line and understand how you help this person do this in a way that promotes their recovery, not relapse. Does that make sense? But do you see how, I mean, letting a client grieve the loss of their drug, do you see how there are counselors out there who think that is the most ridiculous, craziest, most antithesis thing they ever heard of? What do you mean? They should be glad that drug is gone. What do you mean? Grieve it. That's the idea. No. That's the counselor who doesn't know or understand this. You guys are going to be the counselors that know and understand this. Do you understand what I'm saying with this? There's a difference there with that. The second level, second level of floaty things. The second level of floaty things. Gang, what I call, write this down, the addiction survival persona.
Titanic.
Who this person becomes as a function of how, I'll say this again, but this addiction survival persona, who this person becomes as a function of how they learn to survive in their addiction. Do you see what I'm saying with that? Who this person becomes. Gang, do you remember the hedonic calculus? I'm going to see if I can get away with this right now because that screen's just in my way.
Can you say that last part as a function of?
Who this person, the addiction survival persona, who this person becomes as a function of learning how to survive in addiction. Gang, think about this for a minute. That person, there's somebody out there, there's lots of people out there right now, and somehow before this day is over, they have figured out how to get 30, 40, or 50 controlled pills today. And not just because tonight's a big party. They're going to do the same thing again tomorrow, and the same thing the next day, and the same thing the next day, and the same. How do you do that? You see what I'm saying with that? How do you do that? You got to figure out some pretty cool things. How do you manage to get 50 controlled pills a day? How do you manage to get all the money it takes for that heroin, that cocaine, how do you do? You got to figure out some pretty good ways to do that, don't you? You got to figure. How do you learn how to talk to people, manipulate people? How do you do this? How do you do that? All those things. On top of that, surviving the dangers of addiction. On top of that, surviving that self-evaluation. Who remembers our hedonic calculus? Do I even have to do that anymore? Remember that? And then what was this? What was this fourth component of this right here? What was that?
That was the addiction survival persona.
This is the addiction survival persona right here. What was that? What did we call that? What was that? The cognitive dissonance resolution. This is all the stuff the counselor loves to hate about the person. Hey, let's make sure we all got cognitive dissonance and cognitive dissonance resolution. What is that? Somebody tell me what cognitive dissonance is.
Doing something but then making it okay in your mind, justifying your actions.
In other words, that clash between beliefs, ideals, this, that, and everything. Got that conflict. That brain don't like that conflict. We got to figure out how that brain that learned a long time ago, if it feels bad, get the hell out of there. How do I deal with this? I promise, honey, I'm not going to drink anymore. I come home drunk. How do I explain that? How do I explain it to myself?
It's all her fault.
It's all this, it's all that. You see, that cognitive. How do I learn how to justify this? I mean, look at all the bad stuff happening. How do I explain this to myself? This is where, all that resistance, all those defense mechanisms, all those things counselors love to hate. You're diminishing this, you're minimizing this, you're blaming, you're thising and thating that. You're so full of shit. No wonder you see what I'm saying? That's that stuff. What is that? That's that client trying to, how do I explain this to myself? How do I live with myself with this stuff? This is that counselor. I can't. Where do you come up with this bullshit? How do you come up with this shit? I can't. How do you come up with the kinds of things? Do I have stupid written on my forehead? Do you really believe this shit you're trying to tell me right now? That's what an idiot counselor is. Don't be an idiot counselor. Think about that question for a minute. Do you really believe this shit you're trying to tell me right now?
Yes.
What's the answer to that question?
Yes.
They need to. Yes. Gang, think about that 92-pound, 26-year-old woman standing in front of a mirror, insisting she's seeing a heavy person. If she's looking in that mirror, really seeing a heavy person, don't worry about eating disorder. She's having hallucinations. Why is she insisting she's seeing a heavy person in that mirror? She needs to believe that. How could she explain to herself why she's doing this to herself if she didn't believe that? You understand what I'm saying with that? This person, they truly believe this stuff. They need to. They need to. They need that as much as a carpenter needs a hammer. That is their way of surviving this. Do you see what I'm saying with that? They gotta believe this shit. They need that. And when we get so damn mad at them for that kind of, oh, you're so full of shit. Do you really, how do you come up with this shit? What do you know what? How does that help anybody? You see what I'm saying with that? And that kind of stuff like that, you guys, you've got to understand what is it? And this person, how did we say it? The stories they tell themselves and all that, the way they justify this. And how does it go? The more you do it, the better you get, the easier it is, the easier it is, the more you do. The more you do, the better you get, the easier it is, the more you do. They get really good at this. It becomes a part of who they are. It becomes a part of their personality. Along with, once again, how in the hell? How does that person manage to get 20, 30, 40 or more controlled pills, or whatever, hundreds of dollars worth of cocaine, or heroin, or whatever, or what? You see what I'm saying with this? How does that person do that? They have to become somebody that helps them survive in that. Does that make sense? That addiction survival persona, who they become. Again, including, their way of dealing with people. You're about to sneak into my game here. I got to figure out how do I stop you before you get into my game. You see what I'm saying with that? What do I do? Do I become aggressive? Do I become this? Do I become very defensive? You see what I'm saying with that kind of stuff? You're about to, all this stuff. Who this person becomes. Not because they're a bad person, not because they're a big asshole. It's who they've become in order to survive all this stuff I'm talking about right now. And continue day after day with this. That becomes a part of their personality. And just because one day they get arrested or because they had some epiphany in their life or whatever else and they decide to quit, that doesn't mean that whole personality is going to just all shed off and go away either. Does that make sense? Just like it doesn't mean that brain's going to get all better. Post-acute. Yeah, just because I'm going to White Oaks. Well, that means my brain's all better. No, it doesn't. Well, I'm going to White Oaks. That means that who I am now is just going to suddenly magically, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? If all we had to do is walk in through a door and everything gets better. Counselors think that. They think that. It's almost like you walk in the fucking door. You're here in White Oaks. You should be just perfect better. I can't believe that you're doing this defense right now. What the fuck's the matter with you? I will hunt you down. You see what I'm saying with this stuff? No. It's gonna that's who that person is. And gang, think about it. However you want to look at it. It's working for that person right now. They got the game. They got the this. They got the that. They're so good at it. Once again, I'm not stealing your stuff. You're insisting I take it. That's how good I am at this. You see what I'm saying? That kind of stuff, you guys. That just because they walk into a treatment center or into an AA meeting doesn't mean that all that just goes away. That's a part of who that person is. And what happens very often is a person goes into recovery, and all we do is holler and scream. Let's do the 12 steps. Let's sing Kumbaya. Let's we're going to do this and that and everything else. And, and never do it again. All this stuff. And then 30 days or whatever later, you're all fixed and better, have a great life and everything else going out there. They focused on the don't do that no more stuff. You see what I'm saying? They focused on the don't do that no more stuff. But they didn't do anything about the addiction persona. The addiction survival persona. So everybody's hugging them and patting them on the back, and out they go back into life. They're not using it, but they still get that addiction. They still are seeing life. They're still responding to life in people via that addiction survival persona. You see what I'm saying with that? Because that's who they are now. And if I walk out there and the only thing I've done is stop using, and I still have all that, my way of relating to and dealing with the world, people, life in general, probably going to lead me back to what?
Drugs.
Very often it leads me back to what?
Using.
The use. What these programs need to do and what counselors don't understand and what you guys are going to understand is, we talked about this, the 2 levels of the treatment plan of the change. The first level is, don't do that. Don't do that. Stop it. Stop drinking. Stop using that stuff. Stop it. Don't do that no more. Stop it. Stop it. What's that second level? Deal with the stuff. The issues, the things, the stuff about that person. Identify and deal with the issues about that person that's going to need to be identified and dealt with if they're going to get to the point that they can do level 1 in the first place. You see what I'm saying? Person's got to change. If all we do is spend 30 days, don't do that no more, and if we don't address this addiction survival persona, that person walks back out there still, and that this very often is going to what? It's going to lead them right back to their addiction. Does that make sense? We have to address that also, and that can be scary to that person. That second level, the way I treat people now. Hey, I'm good at beat you to the punch. Before you hit me with some awkward or scary question, or I'm gonna. You see what I'm saying? You want that kind of stuff. We're not. How? Those are skills this person has developed. Once again, I'm so good at what I do. And not only that, but I'm so good, I'm kind of proud of how good I am at that. I tell you what, 10, 15 minutes, I got a doctor, they don't even know their fucking middle name anymore. Right now. You see what I'm saying? I'm good at that. It's kind of nice to feel good at something. You see what I'm saying with that? That! All this. And what do we, if you're doing your job right, we got to do something. You can't walk out of here that. What we need to do is we need to exchange the addiction survival persona for the recovery survival persona. Recovery is damn hard work too. This person. You can't do recovery with addiction persona. We have to exchange addiction persona for recovery persona. Does that make sense? And in the beginning, that's going to be damn. All I know is how I survive on those streets. And now you want me to let that all go? That's going to scare the fuck out of me. You understand what I'm saying? And that fear, and that's going to scare. I got to let go of this. I got to let go of that. One of the big ones has always been back in the TC days and everything. Pride. Your addiction, pride. You got to let go of that pride. And that's why we're going to break you down. That's why they would make people count marbles. Remember when I talked about that? That's when they would make people count marbles or stand there and be cussed and sworn at by and stuff. And thank you. And that was to bust that pride. What was that? That was the addiction survival persona. Bust that shit out. And that's damn scary for that client. How good I am at my addiction is the only thing I know and the only thing I'm good at. had a thing. I watched this. I wasn't in charge of this program yet. I became in charge of this program about a month and a half later, and I fired the 2 counselors involved with this. Had a woman who was a serious heroin addict. Real serious heroin habit. Was also known as, she was one of the most famous prostitutes in town. Her ability to do her job, she was very well known for it. And here she is, she's still on methadone, titrating down. We'd gotten to the match, stabilized, titrate down. She's really digging this. She's really, I can't wait to get off the methadone. She was doing everything she could to take advantage of this treatment. This was a residential treatment program. And one day, her idiot moron counselor, right in the middle of all this, I mean, she's still on methadone. She's coming down. She's just discovering she can have her life back. She's just discovering and how scary all this stuff is and everything else. And right in the middle of that, her counselor one day decides that what he needs to talk to her about is that she needs to stop prostitution. And that just hit her, whacked her in the side of the head like a board. And they ended up in a big-ass argument over that. To the point that she flew out her hands and said, fuck you, fuck this, I'm out of here. And by the time that whole idiot process got done, other counselor came in and ganged up on her. Yeah, if you don't want to quit prostitution, that means you're not really serious about your recovery. And gang, I'm not here promoting prostitution, but I'm telling you right now, that wasn't a good time to talk about this. First, that's the only thing. She was famous for her skills as a prostitute. That's the only thing she knew. The only thing she felt good about. That was her survival. Oh, by the way, that's how she fed her children, too. And right in the middle of this, you got to quit all that stuff. And if you don't right here and now say that you're going to, that means you don't want to get better. And you see what I'm saying with this? Right? They would not let it go. They didn't recognize what we're talking about in class this morning. They were idiot moron counselors. And I'm watching this. And I tried to, at that point, I couldn't. A month and a half later, I fired both of those idiots. About a month and a half later is when I became in charge of that program. I just called them both in. I said, pack your stuff, you're out of here. And when they said, why? I said, because of that. That's why. That woman. You know what they did to her that day? You understand what they did? Now, probably someplace, sometime down the road, in recovery, in this counseling, it'd probably be a good thing. Let's talk about that. Probably would find a different job one of these days. But right then, right there, do you see what I'm saying with that? Mm-hmm. And do you see the mistake they made? What was that?
Wrong time.
Yeah. You know what? Probably this woman, at some point, probably don't want to be doing prostitution in recovery. They're probably not going to match. But that was the right thing, but way wrong time. Way wrong way. Does that make sense? It's how you do what when, you guys. You know who often makes these mistakes, confronting this stuff and not seeing this? Our sponsors. Well-intended, well-meaning, their heart in the right place, they really in it, but they don't know nobody said they're supposed to know what the fuck they're doing. They're not counselors. Sponsors are not counselors. You're going to be counselors. That means you had better know and understand this stuff. Does that make sense? Do you ever notice that when I talk about this stuff, I become like a preacher? You know why? Because this is that damn important. If you're going to make a difference. You people are going to go out there and make a difference in people's lives. Whether it's a good difference or a bad difference is up to your accepting this responsibility. Know this stuff. Yeah, that second level. Letting go of that addiction survival persona. All those little ways and shit and the ways I do stuff and things like that. You know, look at that. That's not, that worked great. Did a great job for you in addiction. It's probably not going to work so well in recovery. We want to exchange addiction survival persona for recovery survival. Do you guys hear that? Do you understand how important that is? Now, you didn't read about that in any damn book, did you? It's too damn bad. But you guys now have this, and you're going to use this. And because of today, once again, one of these days, somebody's life is going to be better off if you embrace this and use it the way you're supposed to. And I grieve for our missing colleagues today. I grieve the clients that they're not hearing this today. You hear what I'm saying with this? Do you understand how important this is? And that terrifies that person. That terrifies. You have to help them work through that. This is the only thing I know. And instead of belittling, berating, denigrating, threatening that woman, they should have, embraced. This is all she knew. That's the only thing she knew how to feel good about. That's the only thing. You see what I'm saying? And her whole fucked up, complete mess, train wreck of a life, the only thing she was good at was prostitution. And 4.5 weeks into recovery, that idiot moron counselor wants to sit there and rip that away from her. And you understand what I'm saying with this? Do you hear what I'm saying with this, you guys? I will hunt you down. So very important. Gang, another thing. When clients start to encounter these fears, the fear of letting go of their drug, the fear of letting go of that persona stuff, that's scary stuff. They sometimes are going to start to act in goofy little ways, self-sabotaging ways. I'm about to do this, is scaring the hell out of me. One of the easiest things to do is just fuck it up and walk away, right? Let's be honest. And that client's going to start to do that kind of stuff. And that's when the idiot counselor starts to get mad at the client and start to berate them and stuff like that. And that's when one of the things they'll say to that client is, your problem is you're afraid of success. Don't you ever, ever, ever say that to a client. That client's not afraid of success. They're terrified of failure. Do you hear what I'm saying with this? Do you hear what I'm saying with this? Gang, you got to respect this. There is a reason why. Heard me say this before? There's a reason why we in this business think we're big shots with 18 to 20% success. You hear what I'm saying with that? Are you guys happy with 18, 20% success? Is that good? Is that really good?
No.
Not knowing, not appreciating the importance of, not caring about this stuff is why we think we're good at 18 to 20% success. There's no reason why. And so much of this stuff, like I say, and early recovery is more than just the first 72 hours or something like that. But this stuff, this is why so much of it, so many of those treatment failures, right there it is. You see what I'm saying with this? Yes.
How do we get all of this in such a short window of time? Because it didn't take 30 days for me to become that heroin addict with my ones, my twos, my threes, my fours. It took some time.
Right.
So
what you do is, you're right. I'm not going to have you completely remolded but I'm going to plant real good, healthy seeds.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then I'm going to teach you how to nurture those seeds when I'm gone. When I'm gone. As a matter of fact, who has taken the time to look at their assessment handout all the way through toward the end when it talks about generalization of change, transfer of control, those kinds of issues? You can see them at the very front, then we talk about them at the end. That's what that is. You know what? No, in 30 days, you're right. But can I plant seeds and then can I transfer you the control over your ability to nurture that? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But what if I don't even recognize that or deal with it in the first place? Well, there goes that garden. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's the point of this stuff, you guys. Hey, who already since 8 o'clock this morning, every time I open my mouth, counseling becomes a little bit more complex, doesn't it? A little bit more complicated. This is a whole lot more than just wagging your finger saying, don't do that no more.
I need a little bit more information on something.
What's that?
How you say you don't necessarily agree with the, what I call the gateway counselors, through Sheridan Correctional Center. When I went there, I was one of them tough drug addicts. Not everybody there was there for the drug counseling, but if you're going to be there, you're going to get the treatment. So and I got out of order sometimes, and they had to put me on the wall and bring structure to me. They had to come to me and stand me up there and tell me, why are you continually doing the same? You know what I'm saying? See, that was a learning experience that I had to learn from. And a lot of people did learn something from that, because you can't soft talk
You know how many people learn from
a
that?
tough gangster.
You know how many people learn from that? You and 18 to 20% of the rest of the people learn from that. You're right. How about those other 80%?
Well, they were doing the things that they were instructed to do. We were the ones, we were the rebels.
What I'm saying is this.
You know what I'm saying?
What I'm saying is, a good counselor is able to adjust and make in the now.
It wasn't the counselor that was doing it to us. They instructed our peers.
But what I'm saying is, the approach
Right.
is able to adjust to what's the best thing to do right now. Remember, what's the next best right thing to do?
Right.
And sometimes if that's in your face kind of a thing like that, but for most people that's not working.
Okay.
For most people, don't forget, always with pt1. There is no ultimate, absolute, universal truth with anything. And I reckon, you know what? I tell you what, there are people out there, the only thing they ever got in their life was that hardcore kick your ass recovery and 12 steps. And to this day, they're celebrating their 25th, 30th year of sobriety. And don't you ever take that away from them. But how about the other 80%? You see what I'm saying? And that's who, you know, and so this is what you have to listen to. I want you to remember something. Your experience was your experience.
Right.
Don't let your experience prevent you from hearing and feeling and understanding.
I'm learning from you, but I'm also, if I see something that this counselor is dealing with, I'm gonna deal with my counselor, you know, according to what we're learning from. But I understood why they did that to me.
That worked for you.
Because
Great.
I was there for the good time. I wasn't there. When
I know, I understand that.
They
But I want
asked
you to hear this. I want you to hear
who
this.
needed the drug.
That was what worked for you.
Right.
And that's great. And it may be what's going to be the thing that needs to work for this person here, and maybe even that person over there. But you have to have your ability to go way beyond that and all the things I'm talking about here, because that's not going to work for most people.
Right.
And it doesn't work for most people. I was in those hardcore drug programs. I ran those hardcore, the in the face, you motherfucker, and get your head out of
They didn't use curse words. The counselors didn't never let them use that.
Well, I know, but you know, don't get completely literal.
Well, I know what you're saying.
But it's, you know, but the point is, I was in those programs, and guess what their success rates were? 15 to 20%. There were some people. It worked. Fantastic. That's great. Okay, it worked for that person. And it worked for that other person, and maybe, you know, kind of, but how about the other? We want to be able to be somebody that it's going to be something that's going to be good and works for everybody, or at least many more than 20%. Does that make sense?
Right.
And so that's what I mean. Don't let your personal experience interfere with your ability to understand what we're talking about in the big picture.
Right.
Because your personal experience is fascinating and good, and for you, it worked. And I often say, you're going to meet somebody. The only thing you ever got was a kick in the ass in AA or something like that, and they're looking at their 25th year of sobriety. Don't you dare take that away from them. And that is fantastic. O equal T plus C, there is no universal truth for any of this stuff.
Right.
But just because that's the way it worked for you, don't let that hinder your ability to see what we're talking about here. That's the importance of that. Because most of those people, that doesn't work. I know that because I was there. I watched every day. 1 or 2 people out of 30. It was working for 1 or 2 people out of 30. How about all those other people? You see what I'm saying? It wasn't working for them. They were leading a mad dash out the door. They had to get out of here. This isn't working. You see what I'm saying? That's the people. And your ability to discern the difference between and what approach to use with what person, when, why, and how. That's the good counselor. Understanding what we're talking about right here. This one here is so incredibly, wildly important. And then, as that took us into that, again, addiction, survival persona. And they're not only afraid of letting go of their drugs, they're afraid of letting go of who they are now. That woman wasn't hearing it would be better for your recovery program if you stopped being a prostitute. She didn't hear that. All she heard is, you're trying to take away from me the only thing I have to hold on to right now. She couldn't even fathom that, right? Later on, at the right time, the right and that, yeah. But right then, right there, no, that was what an idiot thing to do. Why that counselor got it up his ass that day, right at that point, somewhere or another, he got in his ass that day that he had to talk about that. What the hell was that? It was an idiot counselor, is what that was. Yes.
Yeah, I was in the Gateway program too, and I walked away from it. I got out of it because
It worked for you. It worked for one person. It didn't work for you.
Well, I got away from it. I didn't like the way I was being talked to.
It worked for one person. It didn't work for another. That's what this is all about, you guys. And a good counselor is going to be able to tailor to each individual person, not just be by guided. And that's where, because I hear what you're saying. I hear your story. You have, your story. You've laid it out well. And how you got through that and what worked for you. Don't let that interfere with your ability to see all this other stuff, though, because that's not going to work for probably most other people. You see what I'm saying? Work for you, and that
I
is
wouldn't say I
fantastic.
would ever do that to nobody else.
But just
It's just my lifestyle
Right.
that I come from.
Right.
You had to talk to me this kind of way for me to understand.
That's right.
You couldn't cotton candy salt. Would you like to just sit down
But
and
that's
talk
not
about-
counseling anyway.
Right.
cotton candy is not counseling. It's just saying the right things right.
But that's what I'm saying.
But-
They say
but-
it too nice. You're saying it in a real low
Well, and that was you.
voice.
And that was you. And that's cool.
And the thing is, I was so used to
And that was
being
you.
Talk that.
And
You know what
so,
I'm saying? So that I could talk back to them.
and that worked for you, but it doesn't work. It's not
They
gonna
actually,
promote.
at the end, the counselor brought me in the office, and they all came in there and said, we did not do this to humiliate you or to make you feel bad about yourself. We just saw that you were doing certain actions that
I
were
get it.
uncontrary. You did not make your
I get
bed
it.
up.
I get it.
You did not do this morning. You did not do this morning.
We got to move on with this right now, but
Right.
but I hear you, and it worked for you, and it's fantastic. That is, I celebrate that. It worked for you, but it's not going to work for everybody. You have to have the ability to understand this stuff in a way that you can tailor your approach to each individual. That kind of a thing. Does everybody get any questions about this? How important this is, and the concept of addiction, survival persona, and all that stuff? Any other questions with that?
I just wonder if you could give us a brief explanation of the recovery survival persona.
It's just who this person, again, what do they have to change about who they are, how they look at themselves, life, other people, how they deal with things. As a drug addict, that person is going to see what they can do to, and how do I change that to embrace the realities of living in recovery?
You've gotten used to being manipulative. Now that you don't need to be, you're still finding yourself manipulating people. That kind of a thing.
Yes, and so changing that kind of stuff and things. Exactly. Yes. And who this person becomes in a way that complements and promotes their recovery. And how they do that. And gang, This is scary, 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 scary stuff, and it drives many, many, many. I mean, this is the out the door in 10 minutes, the out the door in 24 hours, the out the door in a 1 week stuff right here. You see what I'm saying? Terrified of that stuff. Terrified of that. Terrified of it. We talked about this. Somebody tell me what I mean about arousal level changes. Who remembers that discussion?
Isn't that like where all of a sudden, like, you're really tired and you used to be like, oh, was that the stress thing? Because now you're bored. Yeah. Mm-mm.
Remember this? Here's normal stress. And this was the Hans Selye. It was that stress model. Remember that? What did we call it? Anybody remember? What was that called? I'll give you a hint. GAS.
General Adaptation Syndrome.
General Adaptation Syndrome. And gang, how did Selye, and this wasn't about addiction or recovery. This was about how come people get sick from stress. But we used this. And again, here's normal stress. And then right here, the first stage, what was that? Alarm. And what happens? Here's this person going along in life, and right here a stressor happens. First that stress resistant dips, and then it starts to go way up. What do we call this period right here?
Resistance.
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight.
And then they get clear up here. That sympathetic, we're going to call it next semester, the sympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system. And then, well, the whole idea is what? You get up here, you solve the problem, and then the parasympathetic brings it back down to where it belongs. But how about for that person who, instead of solving the problem, what they do makes it even worse? How about that person where it's one thing after another after another? How about that person where other people will look at them and say, oh, you're your own worst enemy. That person that's doing all this crazy shit and all this. Instead of getting this back down to where it belongs, it stays up here like this. Now, this stress energy at this level is fantastic because that's what helps you have the energy to solve the problem and get it back down. But if you stay up here at this level, that's very, very physically expensive. Metabolically expensive. Your body is working real hard. You know that. You're feeling it. You're sweating. You're feeling your heart racing. You're feeling your breathing. You're feeling all that stuff. Then what is that? That's that fight or flight response. That sympathetic response. And the whole idea is mobilize the energy, kill the tiger, and then come back down. But what if you're not killing the tiger? What if instead of killing the tiger, you're making them, you're sharpening their teeth? What if you're one problem constant? What does that kind of sound like? It kind of sounds like the day in the life of an ongoing addiction thing, right? It's one day after constant. A struggle for survival. I got to get my drugs. I got to watch over there. I got in trouble here. I got to watch for the law. I got to watch this and that. And so instead of it getting back down here where it belongs, it stays up here like this. Now, Selye would say, and this middle, what was this called? The resistance. And then this third stage was called what?
Exhaustion.
And Selye would suggest that this is why stress makes us sick. Because we stay at this high level like this too long. The body works too hard too long. It finally wears out, gets sick, and down we go in this third stage. Gang, one of the problems with this, when you're up at this level of stress, this at so long, at some point, guess what? This new heightened level begins to feel normal. You change your operating, your baseline. In the beginning, this feels uncomfortable. Shit, I got to calm down. But at some point, this begins to feel normal. Do you see what I'm saying with that? Physiologically, your body adjusts to that just like it adjusts to drugs. At some point. Yeah, in the beginning, this was as uncomfortable for that person as anybody else, but at some point, it begins to feel normal. And then, one day, you hit bottom, or you got arrested, or whatever, and you go into treatment, and they say, come back down here with us and be happy about it. They ain't getting ready to go. Now, this doesn't feel good to that person. This feels very weird, bad, foreign. This is where